Well, howdy. 9/11 Gitmo Watch. KSM et al. Will never make it to the tribunal date set for trial. Today is September 11th, 2019. Military Tribunal Judge Shane Cohen issued a trial date order in the schedule for the 9/11 KSM et al. Proceedings to be held on January 11th, 2021. This long-awaited news was welcomed by many, even though the trial date was set for 20 years after the 9/11 terror attacks in 2001. But believe it or not, this date in 2021 is for the trial to actually begin. Everything else over the years was all preliminary. Hello, I'm Linda Forsyth, and I'm a volunteer citizen journalist with Seavine News. We have a team that has been in live attendance via CCTV at every KSM et al. Military Tribunal pretrial in Gitmo since January 28, 2019. We have received these CCTV live streams at Fort Meade in Baltimore, Maryland. I'd like to ask my guests to please go ahead and consider clicking the subscribe button to our videos so you can have a regular reminder of when we do these videos. Every single time there is a pretrial or a tribunal, we do go ahead and do videos such as this. Although in the near future, just so you are aware, I am going to be starting to do nightly news. So that's coming up in 2 weeks, as soon as I get back here from Fort Meade. Alrighty then. Our team has taken special interest in these trials, and we've spent a great deal of time researching its history and poring over the transcripts. Since that fateful day in September 2001, our world has been forever changed. We all remember where we were when we first heard about the attacks. America and the world stared in disbelief as we watched with horror and all this horror unfolding before our eyes. The terror attacks were a series of 4 coordinated events that ended the lives of over 3,000 victims in that day, and the toll continues to climb from the after effects. Judge Cohen, pictured here, is assigned to this case. He's relatively new as of June 2019 and inherited a complex history. I will quote Carol Rosenberg from her article in the New York Times as she says, when he took over as a judge in the military trial of the 5 defendants charged in the September 11, 2001 attacks, Colonel W. Shane Cohen inherited 23,039 pages of public and secret transcripts, a vault with secret evidence withheld from defense lawyers by prosecutors invoking a national security exception, approximately 500 substantive legal case motions, and some awaiting rulings, and more legal arguments and filings in the pipeline. He is the third person since 2012 to preside over the complex, slow-moving proceedings, which have been bogged down over how to handle what the United States did to the terrorist suspects from 2002 to 2006 in the CIA's secret network of black sites. Black sites is where they carry out their torture, just so you're aware. Secret sites, various different ones around the world. Excuse me. More than 17 years have passed since the attacks by Al-Qaeda, and 7 since Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the accused mastermind of the plot, and 4 other accused accomplices were arraigned in the case, which carries the death penalty. And Colonel Cohen could be the first judge to actually set a trial date. Now, this is what she wrote when he first came on. Well, her predictions were accurate, as he is indeed the first judge to finally set a trial date. But in this case, we need to ask, why did it take over 17 years to finally set this date? The Nuremberg tribunals after World War II were over in only 1 year. That's just something that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Now, you may review the entirety of the trial order and schedule here. I have the link here, and let me see. Here it is. It's something you probably want to keep a hold of. and watch very closely, because he outlines beautifully exactly how things are going to be laid out, the different dates, how it's going to move forward, just everything that they have scheduled, when they have deadlines, things that need to be met. So as we continue forward with covering these events, here's your complete schedule right here. So the link is sitting right here where it says trial order and schedule right here. Okay, in today's KSM et al. Tribunal on 9/11, Judge Cohen made the statement, such an order should have been written a long time ago, but it does not preclude me from setting an earlier date. Now, his statement does manage to give me a little bit of hope, but there was a stark turnaround from an earlier statement that was made actually during the last proceedings, that he basically said a later trial date may also be a strong possibility if important issues continue unresolved. Well, we're not in this place 17, 18 years later if these things were easy to resolve. So that just did not sit well with me. A number of family members and victims and 9/11 first responders have continued to stay involved by closely watching the justice system in play for bringing these responsible to justice. A travesty of ongoing delays, case dismissals, and 2 series of pre-trials have not brought us much closer to justice. To say they are fed up would be an understatement. But if a trial date has been set, that would mean that's something good, right? Unfortunately, no, it doesn't. Please understand that even though the news I'm about to release is troubling, there is potentially great news that can possibly get around all of this. So please don't despair. Much may be resolved on Thursday, tomorrow, on September 12th. Attorney General William Barr has a 9/12, September 12th deadline to make a decision on the release of the Saudi official's name that was redacted from a 2012 tribunal proceeding. The importance of this name cannot be understated because it will actually lead to a slew of other revelations. Barr also could potentially choose to keep the name classified, in which case then we're going to have a problem, but I digress. Now I want to stop here a minute and make a statement. I've been hearing about all about the various different members of our politicians, Senate, business leaders, just all different types of people that are within our own camp that are part of 9/11's orchestration, and they may very well be. But I am going to suggest to our listeners to think bigger. This is global, folks. I've been doing this now for quite a long time and watching this very closely. And what is going on behind the scenes, this is global, having to do with many countries. And it's not necessarily the people you are thinking are at the top. There's someone else. There is a group of someone else's. So go ahead and I know you're past the point of being patient. I am too, quite frankly. I'm pretty fed up. But the Saudi official's name is really key. It's going to unlock everything. And from there, it's just going to just watch the dominoes fall around the world. Another potential workaround also that in one way or another, whatever Barr is going to do is came from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed himself. When he made a proposal to the victims and family members that he would name who else was responsible for the planning and orchestration of the 9/11 terror attacks, but only if they would be willing to take the death penalty off the table. This proposal was announced on Fox News a couple of weeks ago. I don't really know what to think about that one, except that all I know was he was rather looking forward to dying as a martyr not too long ago, and he's been, very proud and etc. of everything that he's done. So I don't know, but he is willing to name all these, and he made that proposal to the family members and the victims of 9/11. So I've spent a great deal of time deliberating whether to bring this information to the people. What I have to tell you, I've suspected for a while now, and I've recently found out that a number of people close to these trials already knew this. All information has facts to back up these assertions about to make. I bring them to you. I bring them to the court of public opinion because we, the people, may have to make some demands for change here. We're the boss. Remember that. We, the people. All right. In this report, I will only bring to you the highlights because there are 18 years of complicated history. After poring over all these facts, reviewing files, and speaking with witnesses, I've come to the conclusion that these trials were set up for failure since its inception. President George H.W. Bush implemented new military tribunal laws into place after the attacks that kept many proceedings closed at the whim of the tribunal judge in place at that time, and for any reason he deemed necessary for national security purposes at any time. There was no criteria. It was all taken off the table. It was completely put into the hands of the military judge proceeding at the time. And more often than not, the proceedings just remained closed. So there really wasn't a whole lot of transparency, should I say, keeping an eye on things that was available to do. And that's not good. Okay, so where was I here? President George Bush implemented the new military tribunals into law after the attacks that kept many proceedings closed at the whim of the tribunal judge. I already read that. A number of attorneys and close watch groups complained vehemently and wrote papers explaining the many problems with the changes. In addition, President George W. Bush implemented and signed into law the AUMF order on September 18, 2001, which ultimately states terrorists can be detained without charging them indefinitely. There are 31 remaining Middle Eastern terrorists who are still detained at GTMO under this classification. Authorized use of military force is what AUMF stands for. Authorized use of military force. I highly recommend you go ahead and Google search that and read up on exactly what that is. It's going to be quite eye-opening. Then President Obama came along and made a few changes of his own to some of the laws that caused some critical evidence to be inadmissible in court or cause that jurisdiction questions such as federal court or military tribunals. There's much more to this, and it would take an entire report to cover it all and how all these various different laws and mandates, etc., were put into place and how they kind of all work together in tandem. But there are significant pieces of the puzzle, so it would be worth taking the time just to go ahead and look that up. We are going to be providing that to you also for your convenience. There has been official announcements that we have enough evidence to gain a guilty verdict, and that's true, but it won't matter. These trials will never make it past the pre-trial phase. These proceedings will never make it to trial. I was first told this disconcerting piece of information by a kindly elderly gentleman on January 28, 2019, who was in attendance with his wife at the KSM et al. Pre-trials in Fort Meade, watching the proceedings via CCTV. He was a wealth of information, and he explained the trial history. I listened gratefully as he basically gave me a verbal tour as my first time there. He beamed with pride as he explained that his son was the lead defense attorney, and his son had told him on multiple occasions that these proceedings will never make it to trial. So his son was the lead defense attorney for Khalik Sheikh Mohammed, the head dude. All right. Well, I remember looking at him with was quite surprised. And I said, well, why not? And he said, there are too many problems that were unsolvable. He never said much else after that because the proceedings began, and he usually only showed up for the first trial, the first day of the trial. First day of the trial is when the actual alleged terrorists are mandated to show up. They must show up, at least on that first day. That's when you can see them, and that's usually when most of the people are at these proceedings. The same gentleman repeated this information verbatim on 3 other occasions in different monthly proceedings. This statement wasn't repeated to me, though. It was repeated to 3 other Seavine citizen journalists separately. All of us were told separately, and he wasn't aware that we knew each other. I personally doubt we were the only 4 people he said this to. There were probably others. I never fully understood the reasons why he said that until just recently, because it just didn't make any sense to me. Why would the lead defense attorney come to the conclusions that he had? Now I know, and apparently so do many others who have been following closely over the years, including the 9/11 victims and family members who are absolutely fed up. In fact, there was a tribunal, KSM et al. Meeting 2 months ago that for the very first time, it was unprecedented, that the family members or victims or even first responders, etc., which are allowed to always go to the proceedings in GTMO, no one showed up. No one showed up. And all of a sudden, things are kind of moving forward here. Interesting things are coming about. So it is important for the public to understand some of the events during the last 18 years that brought us to this point. Now, a history lesson as to why KSM et al. Pretrials are taking so friggin' long. Now, I'm going to go over this quickly, but it's going to help you to understand Judge Cohen's statement that he just recently made about the possibility of making a ruling for life in prison for all concerned. This statement was said during the last day of the July KSM et al. Proceedings and is also in the transcripts. As mentioned earlier, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed et al. Is a trial of 5 alleged al-Qaeda members named for aiding the September 11, 2001 attacks. That means that each of these individuals are being tried at the same time, so the proceedings can actually take 5 times as long. Each has their own case and representation. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was first captured on October 1st, 2003. There was a period of an enhanced interrogation from that date until late in 2007. Okay, so from 2003 to 2007, those 4 years right there. Charges were first announced by Brigadier General Thomas W. Hartman on February 11th, 2008, at a press conference at the Pentagon. 2008 is when the first arraignment or pretrial began. The case was thrown out of court in 2010 because of the 2009 Military Commissions Act that made testimony obtained under enhanced interrogation inadmissible in court and were only allowed to use clean team statements that were not derived from enhanced interrogation. Thank you, Obama. So that was first year, second year in office there, Obama, that's what he did. 2012 is the year the second arraignment pretrial began, and the ones we are still in after 7 years right now are about at the end of. But a very disturbing incident was discovered a few years ago and has been of major concern ever since. I just found out about this incident because it was pretty much buried back in all of the material that's going on. But on February 11, 2015, Carol Rosenberg wrote an article for the Miami Herald that best explains what was discovered and why now there's a never-ending saga of delays and mistrust. The CIA court, this is a quote, the CIA court-appointed linguist for bin al-Shabi was sitting next to him in court when 3 of the other defense members recognized him from their years spent in a secret CIA prison. Both the CIA and FBI have been discovered infiltrating the defense team members. The FBI had earlier secretly questioned the accused defense team members and then had them sign a non-disclosure agreement. Okay, the following is a very necessary read to understand KSM et al. History. I've got the link right here, and I highly recommend you take the time to read this. It is unbelievable. Basically, what it's saying is the 6 months before September 11, 2001 actually happened, there were FBI listening to chatter 6 months ahead of time of all these individuals. I don't remember the exact number now, as I've reported it before, but it was something like 102 various different people on 52 lines. I'm going to have to go back and look at this. But they recorded all this, and this linguist was able to identify the individuals. So they knew the what, where, when, and how this was going to happen 6 months in advance. A lot of you already know this. It was taped. And this linguist was also at the black ops sites when they were doing the quote unquote enhanced interrogation for a period of 4 years, 4 or 5 years, and was the witness to many of the things that were confessed under enhanced interrogation. So this person, the CIA person, then retired and got a job on the defense team of KSM et al. Now, that is like the most outrageous, mind-blowing thing ever. And listening to the proceedings, the person that was the prosecution was pretty much saying to the defense attorney, it's like, well, if you guys don't check people's backgrounds when you hire them, like it wasn't his fault. But anyway, there's a big hullabaloo going on with that. So going back here, it has been suggested by those in the know that because of this last incident, the defense team may very well be filing a motion and arguing to have these pretrials thrown out of court. I don't know about you, but when I heard this, I threw up my hands, rolled my eyes. For some reason, the old tune called "The Song That Never Ends" came to mind, one I used to listen to when I was a little kid. I was beginning to think that this is what's happening to these tribunals, the pretrials that never end. This is frickin' ridiculous. Okay, well, here are some of the other main unresolved issues that continue to date and must be rectified before a trial can begin. You need to understand these things and the reasons why, and because we, the people, are going to do something about this. If people that we've hired to do it aren't going to get on the ball. Here are some of the main unresolved issues. Should Al Belushi, now Al Belushi is the proverbial money man, should his case be moved to federal court and out of military tribunals? The defense team argument is Al Belushi conducted most of his alleged atrocities before 2001, and we were therefore not in a state of war. If that is the case, he should be moved to federal court. What are the benefits to Al Belushi if he's moved to federal court? Federal court will not allow confessions made during the enhanced interrogation to be admissible in court. Now, it's the way it always used to be. Federal court, they don't allow anything obtained under torture to be admissible. But it's different with military tribunals. And that was part of the law that Obama tried to change. But the Constitution stopped him. So thank goodness for that. But anyway, so the CIA witness, this is the next point, who was also the linguist that identified the voices on the FBI tape surveillance phone calls, continues to have any testimony given in closed proceedings remain classified. They're going back and forth on this. Concerns for their safety is the reason, and that the families from their families from Al-Qaeda terrorists. Long arguments continue to rage about how the witnesses can be concealed by multiple methods successfully used in many other trial proceedings. But the prosecution is saying, no, this person has a very strong accent. There's little things that can be told and found out. It's not worth putting her life in danger, etc. and so on. Well, this was the person that was seen how many years earlier. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Now, another reason is continued suppression of confessions made by all alleged terrorists because information given was against their will. In other words, confessions are argued as being inadmissible. There was a workaround by implementing what is called clean teams. So when they closed and or throughout the first proceedings, the idea was to bring in these quote unquote clean teams, which are interrogators utilizing nonviolent methods to obtain voluntary testimony or confessions. Now, the other issue, continued suppression of information from the CIA and not shared with the defense team because of it remaining redacted in court transcripts due to a threat to national security that would divulge ways and means of collected information. So they've been going around, still haven't been able to come to a conclusion with that one after all this time. Potential infiltration of the defense legal team by the CIA witness who obtained a job on the defense team after retiring. Okay, that's the one I just told you about. So before the July KSM proceedings, there were 3 important new rulings that was made by Judge Cohen that resolved all these issues. Yahoo! I was so happy. These were posted on the DoD website. Judge Cohen was already making huge headway and taking charge to move things forward in a swift but fair manner. No more stalling with this guy. These rulings were key and meant to go into effect by 7/22, the first day of the July proceedings. I thought this was great news. Finally, we have forward momentum. Alas, it was not meant to be. To remove the legalese here is an encapsulation and gist of what was said. The first ruling, simplified, excuse me, open court proceedings will happen when questioning the CIA witness to the enhanced interrogations with Al Belushi. Note, FYI, this witness is also the linguist who identified the voices in the taping of the FBI surveillance in chatter in the 118 calls from 25 lines. There, those were the correct numbers. Who were planning and orchestrating 9/11 before it happened in 2001. The second ruling temporarily initially hidden and in a placeholder implemented until a response received by the defense team. Deadline was July 22nd, when the ruling would be revealed for public eyes and whether or not the defense team argument of we weren't at war when 9/11 happened, so Al Belushi should be tried in federal court issue. We will hear whether or not this was overruled. Mandated ruling to be in open court the week of July 22nd. That's fantastic. Third ruling. Another ruling temporarily hidden and a placeholder implemented until response received by the defense team. Deadline again, July 22nd, when ruling will have been made available for public eyes and mandated during the proceedings that week. This has to do with Al Belushi's information divulged during enhanced interrogations on whether or not this information should continue to be suppressed or inadmissible as evidence because statements were made against his will or rulings would stipulate it is admissible and will therefore be revealed in open court that week. Well, all of these rulings went through and it was mandated. Open court. The CIA witness was going to be in open court. Everything was just going to move forward and enough of the BS. All seemed to be going well and a great work of progress was made. It appeared as if the judge was taking the bull by the proverbial horns and moving things forward. Nope. During the entire week, there was mass pandemonium as both sides raged against the orders of the new judge. Ultimately, in all of the 5 days that were to be held in open proceedings, only 2.5 days remained open. None of the rulings stood, and one of the defense team members received a contempt of court ruling for manufactured outrage during the Tuesday closed proceedings. Oh man, I wish I was a fly on the wall with that one. You can read or listen to the entire report here, and I do have a link here that you can click, and it explains what happened. It was actually funny if it wasn't so sad. It was like watching I don't know, a food fight in a high school. It appears that these proceedings in September are having a similar repeat performance as Judge Cohen continues trying to move things forward. But the laws and legal setup appear to be causing an ongoing saga of what I have coined again as the pre-trials that never end. More BS, more arguing, no resolution, even though he's placed deadlines and he has made his rulings. So I guess this report is more of a kind of a good news, bad news type scenario. The trial issues may or may not be resolved in any of our lifetimes or even our grandchildren's lifetimes, but there does appear to be hope for justice through other avenues. Let's pray that Attorney General Barr makes the right decision tomorrow on Thursday, which is September 12th. But let me end by saying, as a reminder, it is we, the people, who run this country. We elect the officials to represent us. We hired them as our employees with our voting ballots. What good boss allows their employees to run the business into the ground or not get any work done? What good boss allows a hostile takeover? The employees basically take everything over, the company, etc. We may need to make a few executive decisions here fairly soon if this continues, because as we all know, we have a number of sealed indictments that are supposed to be released. And now Trump is removing a lot of the what I certainly feel corrupt judges. I do believe our judicial system has been weaponized. The attorneys and the judges are following the laws that are set in place. This has been so orchestrated and put together. It is so convoluted and so deep. It's just a mess. And we, the people, may have to step it up and step in to hurry things along a bit, peacefully and within the laws of our Constitution. They're there for this very reason. When there is domestic infiltration and problems that are happening within, we need to take our country back. So, from what I understand, let's pray that he makes the right decision on Thursday. But let me just continue to remember with this reminder, and stay strong, patriots. Keep your eyes open. This very well, I'm believing, I'm praying, is it. Barr is going to make a decision to release this name, which is like the flip of the first domino. And the reason I feel that he is going to do that, because I am in Fort Meade right now as we speak. I know for a fact that September 12th, tomorrow, the Military Tribunal Proceedings are closed for this very reason, to discuss what to do in anticipation of Barr's announcement. So I doubt they would be worried about it if they had feelings that it would just remain classified. Well, everybody, I hope you have a blessed night, and I continue to pray for the victims and their family members who are still living this ongoing saga that has happened and continuing to happen 18 years later. Good night, everybody.